Welcome to 2A for Today. My name is Zoe and I'm your host at 2A for Today. 2A for Today is a program where we explore all things Second Amendment, all things that protect, threaten, and violate the Second Amendment rights of all Americans. Today, I got a special treat for you. Representative Shane Stringer. He's an Alabama House rep who was fired in 2021 by the county sheriff's office. And I'm going to let him tell his story, but he was elected in 2018. He had a position on constitutional carry that was different than after he got elected, okay? And after he got elected, he understood after reviewing and auditing a bunch of sheriffs and people in the area that were, experts, people in other states that had already had it passed, and to kind of review and see what kind of tragedies they had to experience as a consequence. And his mind was changed. He became an advocate of constitutional carry, or permitless carry, as it's called. And so let me introduce you to Representative Shane Stringer. Thank you for being on the show today, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. I kind of told a brief, synopsis of your story, but why did you get into law enforcement in the first place?
I grew up in a family of law enforcement. My father was a police officer, and so I just grew up around it, and it's been in my blood my whole life. And become a police officer when I was 21. I've been in law enforcement for 30 years now, and I've had a great career. So over the years, I've worked my way up through the ranks and, eventually made my way to captain with the Mobile County Sheriff's Department. During that time, I was approached and asked to run for state legislator here in Alabama. And I did so in 2018 and won, and have been here ever since. At my time during my time as law enforcement, I guess I had a different opinion of constitutional carry, of permitless carry. And, a lot of that came from what you're being taught and taught, through our law enforcement leaders, the sheriff in Mobile County and the surrounding counties. And they're telling you that it's bad. But I also had a burden. I took an oath as a law enforcement officer and as a state legislator to uphold the Constitution. So the more I dug into this and looked, it was obvious it was a Constitution issue. Yeah. And I started reaching out to sheriffs across the country that have Constitution carry, and were being told that nothing, changed. It was no major issues with this, and they didn't have a problem with it. So, it took away all the fear factor that the sheriff and his supporters were putting out, that this was going to create a dangerous situation for our community, and it was going to create the Wild Wild West. And when in fact it does not. It actually creates the opposite.
It's interesting too that the arguments against constitutional carry are actually arguments against the Constitution. They're arguments against the God-given rights being protected by your government. Now, I understand you can make whatever laws you want in the states that the Constitution doesn't give power to the federal government to make. The states have that ability, but it's still a God-given liberty issue. And I think our founders, they nailed it. They said that the only thing necessary, it wasn't the president, it wasn't Congress. They didn't even say the governor of the states or the legislatures. It said that the only necessary duty for the security of a free state that was the free people is the militia, right? And so the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So they understood that security is hand in hand with a armed populace.
Right.
And so,
it's been a learning experience to see what's going on with, with all of this, with, being basically terminated for having a different opinion than the sheriff. And, it's liberty don't come easy.
No, it doesn't. It does not arrive on a feather bed. I think that was Thomas Jefferson. I think you can look that up, you guys. Fact check me on that and put it in the comments. But I do have a question for you. You said 30 years in law enforcement. Now, was that entire time with the sheriff's office?
No, I've worked with several different agencies throughout Mobile County. It's a pretty large county. I spent 18 of those years with the sheriff's department. I did leave there at one point and become a chief of police for approximately 9 years. And I was a chief of police whenever I ran for office. And the reason for going back to the sheriff's department was, chief of police is a very demanding job. So it would be a little more difficult to be a legislator and doing that. So
Yeah.
I've made my rounds through through the community there as a chief and a leader in law enforcement. I've worked just about every division there is in the sheriff's department, from SWAT team to the homicide unit.
So I mean, you would be. I would bring you into a court to be a subject matter expert,
That's
and
right.
the sheriff disregarded all of your experience, all of the risk management that you have been trained to discern, and just decided to go with someone else. Do you think there's a reason for that besides the data points?
No, I think it was, personally, I feel like it was kind of a, um, kind of to prove a point with me. How dare you go against what he wanted? Is the way I
Mm,
feel. The permits here in Alabama are a source of revenue for the sheriffs, and they're also a source of a control mechanism. So I think that's what it boiled down to.
wow.
It's kind of a how dare you go against me deal.
A source of revenue and control. I mean, that spells out 2020 and 2021, doesn't it? Source of
That's
revenue and
right. That's it.
control. That
Yep.
our Constitution is supposed to protect us from that, I think.
That's right.
Now, so tell me a little bit about the sheriff. He made a few comments. I listened to an interview he just did recently, whereby he made some I don't know. I think they were good arguments. One of his arguments is
Mhm.
that um, not just that it will be unsafe, but that there's no way to know if somebody is illegally carrying a gun. Like he said to this is what he said to this effect, that if we pulled somebody over and they had a gun, then we would not have the ability to run that gun and determine whether or not it was stolen. Is that a true statement?
As a 30-year law enforcement officer, I disagree with him. We have investigative powers, and if there's probable cause to believe that the person has committed a crime, about to commit a crime, or involved in criminal activity, you can conduct a search, and you could run that gun or check it at that point. So I disagree with him on that point. They've argued that the permit is a tool for law enforcement. I don't think the Constitution should be used as a tool. I mean, if they come next and say that they want to change the Fourth Amendment, unlawful search and seizure, and do away with having to get search warrants, and they can just search anybody's home at any time to take drugs, money, and guns off the street, are we willing to change that? The Constitution is not a tool.
It's interesting too that I mean, no, so there's no language in the permitless carry legislation that you introduced that would explicitly prevent law enforcement from being able to run numbers on a gun if they believe it to be stolen or if they believe a crime was committed. Is that
That's
is
right.
that accurate?
That's accurate. There's
Okay.
nothing in there that's going to prevent law enforcement from doing their job. And I'm getting a lot of support from law enforcement in throughout Alabama.
Wow.
I don't think that they have a valid argument.
That's good news, man. I think he also made another comment. There is a piece of legislation that's like a prohibited person database. I think that's what you had called it when we talked earlier. Um,
Yes.
that sounds like a good thing. Kind of tell me a little bit about that.
During the 2021 session, we passed a lifetime permit bill, lifetime permit that you could get. In that, they created a prohibited person database. Throughout this, I guess, the last few years of working this constitutional carry bill, we've discovered a lot of flaws in the permit system here in Alabama.
Mhm.
So they created a prohibited person database. Anyone that is prohibited under the federal guidelines of owning a gun will be in the system. So instead of tracking law-abiding citizens with permits, we're going to track the bad guys, and that law enforcement will have access to that through a database, and they can check on the side of the road. They can check somebody to see if they are prohibited from owning a gun. That's going to give law enforcement here in Alabama the best tool that they've probably ever had. The permit system is extremely flawed here and offers no safety mechanism for law enforcement.
Are there any anecdotes you can share with us where, you know, the permit system failed, like recently or anything like that?
Well, we have 67 counties throughout the state of Alabama, and almost every county has a different looking permit. Every permit has a different appearance. And the police officers across our state, law enforcement does not know what each permit looks like. So if a police officer stops someone and they show a permit, they're going to take it at face value. They're not even going to know if that is a valid permit. The permits look different. I had an officer call me Sunday. He made a traffic stop. He attempted to call the county from which permit was being presented. They were closed on Sunday. He had to let the person drive away with the weapon, not knowing if it was even a valid permit. So that's some of the incidents. When someone's permit is revoked, the sheriff's departments do not go out and collect the hard copy of the permit, and the offender or the person could continue to show officers or anybody else that permit, and they would take it at face value. That is not safe for our officers.
Wow. So that sounds like the illusion of safety and the illusion of security.
That's right.
Wow. Well, man. So what do you think you got the support you need now, man, to get permitless carry in Alabama?
Yeah, I think so. We did a press conference today. The Republican caucus did a press conference announcing that this is their priority bill for the session. All of the leadership has signed on as co-sponsors. It's got more momentum than it's ever had. I'm getting told that the Senate's eager to pass it, and so I think this is our year.
That's great. Great news. I hope that the people of Alabama will take up not only their duty to be armed, but to go get trained too, because we need a populace that is, I hate to use, because I used to listen to rap music when I was a young man. And there was this one song and it just always takes to my mind, ready for war on the ill block when things ain't peace no more. We got to be prepared for a collapse, for whatever. Look where we're at right now. I believe the election was rigged and stolen by multiple means. That means that the people who would, defraud us would probably allow CCP boots to be on the ground in America. And so we don't know what's coming down the pipe. We just need to be prepared so that way we can have peace, right?
That's right. I agree.
Thank you so much for being on the show today, sir. Is there anything that we left out? Tell me a little bit before you go off. You have children, you have your wife and your kids. How old are your kids? And tell me about your family a little bit.
Yes, I'm married. My wife is awesome. We have ages 24 to 4. So at 51 years old, I have a 4-year-old, but had a sister pass away 12 years ago unexpectedly. We adopted her 2 boys. So we have a 24-year-old that is a deputy in Alabama. We have a 19-year-old that's a college student. We have a 19-year-old that has graduated and working now. I have a 17-year-old that graduates this year, a 16-year-old that's a star athlete, a good kid. And then I have the little caboose, the 4-year-old bad boy.
You are blessed, man. That's amazing.
We surely are.
Yep. Well, thanks for being on the show today. And hopefully we'll see constitutional carry pass in Alabama. We'll see Alabama be trained up and ready for the coming days. And hopefully, not only will we stand a chance, but we'll thrive. We need to thrive. So
sounds good. Yeah, that's right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. That concludes our program for today. Again, in the coming weeks and months, we'll be talking to experts, scholars, trainers, and all forms of gun right activists and Second Amendment proponents to answer the many questions that we all have and help us to understand the poison that's coming down the pipe and ways that we can defend against it. Again, my name is Zoe. I'm your host of 2A for Today. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comments below the video, and I'll get to them as soon as I can, as fast as I can in the coming weeks and months. So thank you again for watching 2A for Today.